daytime dialysis versus nocturnal dialysis. If you want to wash your hands again, just wash them again. If you want to change your gloves, just change your gloves.
Hey guys, and welcome to episode 2 of Let's Do Dialysis. Yes, I'm your host Luke Garnes, and today we're going to be talking about treatment options. For those of you that are getting close to starting dialysis, or you are now starting dialysis, something which you're going to have to discuss with your medical team is the best treatment option for you. Today I'm going to be going through 4 different treatment options, all of which I have experienced. And I'm going to be talking about the benefits of them and also just from my personal perspective. If you did not hear or see the first episode of this podcast, which is like the introductory episode, this podcast channel is basically for those of you out there that are patients that are going through kidney problems, getting close to starting dialysis, and just want to hear things from a patient perspective. That's what we do here. I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. I am just another fellow dialysis patient. I've done dialysis now for some 6+ years, and over that time I just want to be able to share from my experiences really. And you never know who you might inspire and who you might help by just sharing your own experience. So I hope this is of some help to you. Anyway, with no further ado, let's get on to it. So the first one we're going to discuss is peritoneal dialysis. Now, peritoneal dialysis, for those of you who don't know, is dialysis that happens within your belly, if you like, using the lower intestines as a filter. From what I've been told, the intestines filter out excess toxins, fluid in the blood, all these things, and it happens within the body. So in order to have peritoneal dialysis, you have to have a catheter fitted, which is done via an operation. And then you have a port which comes out, which you then use to connect to the machine. The benefits of peritoneal dialysis: more independence, less restricted diet and fluid allowance, because you're doing dialysis more often, so you can eat more, I guess, potassium-rich foods in some instances. You have to be very careful as a dialysis patient with what foods we eat, but it does say that it's less restrictions. No needles. Of course, if you're doing hemodialysis and you have a fistula, you're having to needle yourself on a daily or daily basis. Less strain on the blood vessels and the heart. Apparently, studies show that PD patients may live longer and healthier than hemodialysis patients because of that lower strain on the blood vessels and the heart muscle. This is something which definitely made me want to do peritoneal dialysis to start off with, because I thought, if this is going to be better for me, who doesn't want something that's better for them? So they also say that it's a cheaper method of treatment. Of course, that doesn't relate to me here. Very lucky to be living in the UK, where we have the NHS. So healthcare is covered by them. But if it's a cheaper option for them, of course, that benefits them as well. More flexibility for you as a patient and portable equipment. If you do PD, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can do it at home with a machine, standalone machine at home, or you can do it on the go by manually doing it. and then you manually hang the bags up and do it that way. I haven't had much experience of that way. I had a bit of training with it, but it wasn't for me, so I just did the machine at home. So my experience of doing the machine at home, I started off doing 8 hours a night, 7 nights a week. Pretty full on. Also, straight away, yes, you've got to be on the machine at a certain time in order to know you get off at a certain time. If you've got work in the morning, at the time, I was working as a sports coach teaching PE in the school. I had to be at school for 8:15, 8:20. So I had to be off the machine in enough time to get myself up, ready, dressed, out the door. So if I've got to be on the machine for 8 hours, taking into account setup time as well, I've got to be getting on the machine by 9 o'clock maybe at night, 10 o'clock latest, in order to be off in time. Not be just flying off the machine and going out the door, because you want some time to recover, to recuperate, before you go and do your working day. So you've got to bear that in mind as well. For me, I wasn't getting the sort of clearances that I needed. My fluid restriction was a bit all over the place doing PD. I experienced some pain. If you imagine like a straw sucking and there's nothing to suck there. When you finish PD, I should mention that you have 3 stages to it. You have a fill, a dwell, and a drain. A fill is when it fills your stomach up with, I think, around 2 liters of fluid. Then it dwells for a period of time. During that's when it's extracting the toxins and the fluid. And then once it's extracted all of that into that fluid, which is sat in your belly, it then drains. The end of the drain can be somewhat painful, especially the final drain. When I did it for 8 hours, it did fill, dwell, drain 4 times over the course of the night. So the dwells would be around about 2 hours each. The final drain can be quite painful because it's really trying to extract every last bit in there. And you can feel it a little bit. That was something I didn't really like. Also, just having to plug into the machine every night for me just wasn't ideal. It then went from 8 hours to 10 hours for me because, like I say, the clearances weren't optimal. And then it went from 10 hours to 12 hours. Now, you can imagine when you're doing 12 hours overnight, how much time that's taken up. It was a lot. I had to make sure I was on there at a certain time so I'd get off at a certain time. It was really just like taking over my life. As a musician, I'd come home late from gigs. Then I'd have to go on the machine. That made it problematic because where I was doing it 7 days a week, I couldn't have a day off. So if I didn't get home until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning after a gig, how am I going to get 8 hours of dialysis in before I've got to go to work in the morning? It's just not possible. So it really impacted me in that way. However, some people will have brilliant experiences on PD. It will work perfectly fine for them. They get great clearance, great fluid balance. Everyone is different. So it's just about finding what's right for you. Anyway, moving on to in-center hemodialysis. The benefits, they say, are you're going into in-center, so you're getting treatment from trained professionals. You're not having to do anything. You go in there, they do everything for you. Social interactions. I should use my mute button there. Yes. Yeah, you see it works. Anyway, social interactions. So when you're in center, you're around other people, right? You can talk to the nurses. You can talk to the fellow patients. Whereas if you're at home, maybe you're just on your own. Like when I do dialysis at home, I'm just by myself. If my partner's here, great. She'll sit, have a chat with me. Sometimes we'll watch a film together. But if she's out or she's at work, I'm just by myself. So those social interactions can be a benefit. Also, the separation from home. If you're at home quite a lot anyway, and I know some Some patients that are struggling with chronic illness don't tend to go out very often sometimes. Sometimes they do spend a lot of time at home. So if you're at home already a lot of the hours of the day and then you've got to spend further time at home to do dialysis, maybe getting away from the home environment and going somewhere else is going to be of benefit to you. So that's something to think about. Also, when you're in hospital, you can, of course, read, relax, watch TV. And you can relax more because any issues with the machine, you're surrounded by trained professionals who will fix it for you. My experience, I only did it for a small period of time. I first done PD when peritoneal dialysis wasn't working for me. After I finished doing the 12 hours a night, I come off of that and I started doing my home hemodialysis training, learning how to use the machine myself, plug myself in, all these things. And during that time, before all of my equipment come, I had to wait for my machine to arrive, all the equipment and bits and bobs. I had to go in centre and have dialysis there. I did do this via patient transport, which was a nightmare. It got you there on time, but getting home, you were waiting around for sometimes 2-3 hours for your patient transport to pick you up and take you home. In the end, I sacked that off and I started driving myself there so I could finish and just drive myself home. That was definitely better for me, but for me, what I didn't like about in-centre dialysis was I got used to, after doing my training, doing stuff on my own. I've always been quite an independent person, so to go in and have somebody else cleaning your lines, cleaning your ports, all of that sort of thing, doing the needling, you are putting your trust in them. And yes, they are medical professionals and they do a fantastic job, but it's how you feel about that. And like I say, it's all down to individual and your preferences. I should say that with hemodialysis, you have two ways of doing it. You can either have a fistula. I did have a fistula fitted. You can see there where they've tied it off if you're watching the video podcast, but it did not work properly. So they had to take it out, and tie off the connection. So now I have been using a line for all of my years on dialysis. I've had a few different lines. I had one this side that lasted me a good 4 years. And then unfortunately, I had to get that changed. And I've had a few more put in on this side since then. But yeah, not ideal for me doing the in-centre dialysis, but I still have to do it sometimes when I go in and I'm a patient in the hospital for any reason, or if I've had to go in to have my line checked and they want to test it out. I will have to go on the hemodialysis machines in centre. The hemodialysis machines in centre are a lot more powerful than the home machines. I'm going to move on to home dialysis now, but you will notice the difference as a patient if you have in centre than you do at home, how much more stronger it feels. It's like if I was to liken it to a home piece of equipment like a home hoover and an industrial hoover, it's a lot more powerful. And that's how it feels when you have in-centre dialysis for me personally. Might be different for you. Let me know in the comments. Home hemodialysis, the benefits: longer and slower, more frequent dialysis sessions which can improve kidney function and life expectancy. When they told me this, it was a no-brainer for me. Longer, slower. Now, it is longer because when you do in-centre dialysis, you go 3 times a week, 4 hours per session, giving you a total of 12 hours dialysis over the week. I do dialysis 5 times a week at home. I do 3.5 hour long sessions. I could do 3, but I do 3.5 for better clearance, giving me a total of 17.5 hours of dialysis a week. That's an extra 5.5 hours than what I'd get if I was in centre. Now, yes, the machine at home is slightly gentler, but longer, slower, more gentle dialysis, better for your body, And like I say, it's said that it can potentially improve your kidney function and your life expectancy. According to the National Kidney Federation website, one study showed that 13% lower risk of death in patients and 77% improvement in health. When I hear stats like that, I think it's a no-brainer, right? If it's better for you, if it's going to lower your chances of mortality in the future, and it's going to improve your health, brilliant. Dialysis more frequently is also proven to reduce recovery times from 8 hours in centre to 1 hour after home hemodialysis. This is something that I've definitely experienced. I used to go out cycling a lot, so I'm trying to get back into it again now, following some problems with my knees, but I go out, I do a 15, 20, 25 mile cycle, come home, I do dialysis, and instantly after dialysis, I just want to get up and get out again. So I go out and I do another 5, 10 miles. And when I do home dialysis, I do feel like I'm able just to get off it and just crack on and do something with my day. Whereas when I've had it in-centre dialysis, I felt a little bit wiped out. People that I've spoken to have said that after dialysis in-centre, for the rest of that day, they're a bit wiped out. The next day, they feel much better. So the recovery time is definitely better. Flexibility and ability to travel with the next stage machine, something I've definitely experienced as well. I have been to Holland on a football trip with my old football team. Took the machine with me, that was fine. I've also been to Amsterdam with my partner. We went there for 4 days, or 4 nights, sorry. And prior to that, we had been to Nottingham for a family do, and I took the machine with me from Nottingham out to Holland to Amsterdam, and it was great, you know. It just set up in the hotel room. We had to take the boxes and all the equipment with us, so there's quite a lot of stuff to travel with. But you load the car up, and when you're there, you can do your dialysis, go and enjoy your day, and you can work it around your schedule as well. Another recent study has found that 58% of patients report increased happiness compared to that of in-centre dialysis patients. I can definitely vouch for that. I'm much more happier doing dialysis at home. More freedom to choose your own treatment schedule. I can do it first thing in the morning, I can do it in the afternoon, I can do it at night. Whenever works best for me, depending on what I'm doing that day, that week. No need to travel to hospital 3 times a week, giving you more time. 6% of patients are able to spend more time with friends and family. 7% have more time for hobbies and leisure. 29% are able to either work more often or return to work. These are stats that I found online. Check out the National Kidney Federation. There's all sorts of information online, but any questions and any clarity and confirmation, please check with your healthcare professionals. I can't stress that enough. Home dialysis patients can save up to 52 days per year with less dialysis recovery time and less time spent travelling to centre and waiting for appointments. I said before about the wait time, especially when you have patient transport. It can be quite lengthy. But either way, travelling there, travelling back, you know, they will tell you what time you've got to be there, and you've got to be there. Whereas home dialysis, you do it when you want to do it and when it works best for you. So, my experience is, and I still am doing home dialysis now, great. Some days I just really can't bother to set the machine up. I'm just like, so I just prolong it. And the hours go by, and eventually I think, right, I better do it now. But ultimately, that gives me that choice, you know? If I want to just spend the morning chilling and do it in the afternoon, I can. If I want to spend the whole day out with my partner or with my family and friends and then come home and do it in the evening, I also can. That flexibility is something which I love. I also love the fact that it is more gentle on my body. I've definitely felt that, and I feel good and I feel healthy. And, in a future podcast, I'll talk more about the feeling of doing dialysis. People think it's just relaxing. You go on the machine, just relax. It's a strange kind of sensation when you do dialysis. It's not painful, but it's different. Yeah. But we will discuss that in a future episode of the podcast. I just want to finish up by talking about briefly nocturnal dialysis. Now, nocturnal dialysis is dialysis overnight. I have experienced this as well. And I found online here some of the so-called benefits for nocturnal home dialysis. They say here that you get a better quality of life. People use nocturnal home dialysis may feel better during and after dialysis, have more energy and sleep better. They also have fewer hospital stays. Better health outcomes, improved blood pressure, anemia, phosphate levels. It also can improve neuropathy, restless leg syndrome, and sleep apnea. I know when I started nocturnal dialysis, my doctor was keen for me to do it because the phosphate was a bit high, and he said that over the course of nocturnal dialysis, it will come down. When you do home dialysis, the first kind of mineral to be filtered out is potassium, so I've been told. However, phosphate can take longer. So if you can do a longer dialysis session, and when you're doing nocturnal, you are on the machine for a lot longer. I'm on for 3.5 hours, 5 times a week. If you say you do nocturnal dialysis 3 times, maybe 4 times a week, just take 3 times, for instance. 8 hours per session, 3 times a week, 24 hours of dialysis. I do 17.5. If you're doing in-center, you're only doing 12. People, and I've asked this question before, is more dialysis good or bad for you? Apparently, the more dialysis, the better. The better clearance, the better it is for your heart, the better it is for your health. So that is, of course, one of the benefits of nocturnal dialysis. Other benefits include more time for other activities. Of course, you're doing it 6 to 8 hours, 3 times a week, up to 6 times a week, depending on your situation. Give you more time during the day for other activities because you do it overnight. You finish that morning, you got that whole day to do what you want, and you got the whole of the next day to do what you want before you go on the following night. So it gives you almost 2 full days off of dialysis. Definitely gives you more time to get out and do what you want to do. A gentler treatment. Same thing with home dialysis. It is more gentle on the body. More efficient waste removal. They say that more waste and fluid from the blood can be filtered, which can lead to cleaner blood and better blood tests. No doubt, just from my perspective and from my understanding, that's because you're dialysing for longer. And also it says here about the independence. People who use nocturnal home dialysis are in control of their own treatments, don't have to travel to the dialysis centre. Same as home dialysis. Basically, home dialysis and nocturnal dialysis both rely on a few different things. You might want to take some factors in consideration, like space at home for home dialysis supplies, whether you live alone or have a partner or family member who can help, or whether you're comfortable doing it on your own. I do it on my own, so it's fine. Your personal health status and physical or medical capabilities? Are you able to do treatment at home on your own? And how confident are you in carrying out a home treatment? Your lifestyle, whether it works around your lifestyle or not, to do home dialysis or just to be traveling in centre and have it done there. Ultimately, what's best for you? My experience of nocturnal dialysis was not ideal for me. Firstly, I didn't really enjoy being on the machine for that longer period of time. I felt a bit uneasy. When you do home dialysis in general, you're trained to sort everything out. You've got to monitor your blood pressure. If alarm goes off on the machine, you might have to extract some air from the filter if the air gets caught in there. Different things. You're fully trained on this, so it's nothing to worry about. But when the machine is alarming, if you're asleep, I thought, what happens if I sleep through it? If I don't wake up, then I'm going to sleep through it, and then I'm going to have problems with maybe clotting and stuff like that. And these are all things that went through my head. These are all things that I'd recommend you discuss with your healthcare professional. And I'm sure they can guide you and instruct you on basically the pros and cons and find out what's best for you. For me, that was a worry. I used to have my partner before we lived together. She used to stay with me. When she was there with me, I felt a lot more better. She was by my side. I felt more comfortable. But ultimately, I found it quite disruptive to my sleep. I didn't sleep as well or as peacefully or as deep sleep as I would like. Because I was always waking up and, is this all right? Or sometimes like waking up and like in a bit of a panic and like, is everything okay? You get, you're a bit out of sorts, when you've just woken up. So all those things weren't ideal for me. I did enjoy the gaps off the machine, but I found that during those gaps, I was drinking more. So rather than now, I can take off maybe 700 mils, up to 2 litres, 2.2 max, per dialysis, doing it 5 times a week. If I'd done overnight dialysis, I might come in and need to take off 3.5, 4 litres. Now that's fine because you can take that off over the course of a longer dialysis, over the course of 8 hours. You can take that off, absolutely no problem. But what it does mean is in between treatments, how long are you carrying that excess fluid in your body? For me, just from my perspective and from my thought process, and I try and think quite logically about things, that didn't sit well with me personally. I like more frequent dialysis. I like to get the fluid on and get the fluid off, A lot of dialysis patients still urinate. I do not. And for a lot of dialysis patients, it's the same thing. It stops functioning. The only way to get excess fluid from your body is to use the machine. So I like to get the fluid on, get the fluid off, regular dialysis, and keep me ticking over. Anyway, I'm going to conclude it there. We've gone through 3 or 4? Peritoneal dialysis, in-centre dialysis, home dialysis, and nocturnal dialysis. 4 types. 4 different options for you to think about. Discuss with your medical team, with your friends, with your family, with your loved ones, what is best for you. I hope this has given you some insight and some information. Like I said, everything in this podcast comes from a patient perspective. Any questions, any medical concerns, please ask your medical professional for any clinical advice on your treatment options. If you've got any questions for me, please feel free to get in touch via my socials, at Luke Garns on Instagram, comments on YouTube, Luke Garns. The video podcast will be there so you can post in the comments. Go to my Facebook page, my music pages, Luke Garns Music. You can reach me there. And I'll be happy to answer any questions I can from, like I say, a patient perspective. I'd love to hear from you guys as well. What do you want to hear? What do you want to hear on this podcast? What topics do you want covered? yeah, would you be interested in coming on as a guest and sharing your experiences on dialysis and the different types of treatment that you've been through? But yeah, I hope this has been a help to you. My conclusion comes to one, basically, and that is that home dialysis for me is the best option. In-centre dialysis might be better for you if you just want to go in, get it done for you, get out. Home dialysis, you have to bear in mind, you've got the boxes, you've got the equipment, you've got responsibility. All these things need to be taken into consideration, and you can talk through those options with your medical team. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I'm still getting into the groove with doing these podcasts. I love doing it. I love sitting here, and it feels like I'm connecting with you guys, albeit through this microphone here and through the lens of my camera. But it feels good, and it feels good for me as well. I'm not trying to say this is it's not, it's not about me, but I just think it's good to talk. And I want to hear from you guys. Let's talk together. This podcast is for the people, from a patient perspective. So ultimately, if you got something you want to discuss, if you want to come on the podcast and share some of your experiences, please do just get in touch with me via the socials, via the comments, and we can link up via email, and we can make it happen, because I want this channel to be always coming from a positive perspective. You're never going to hear me on this channel talking about doom and gloom. Don't get me wrong, there's going to be highs and lows, and we're going to discuss that throughout this podcast. But ultimately, I want it to be a positive experience for you guys. I want you to feel like life doesn't end with dialysis. It starts, it begins, it continues. It's a way to facilitate your lifestyle and to keep pushing forward, striving forward, and doing what you love while staying happy and healthy. So, nothing but positivity in this podcast, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know how you're doing on dialysis, what treatment you're undergoing, and I hope you guys are well. I look forward to speaking to you guys in the next podcast. Please stay safe, stay healthy, stay positive, stay you. Take care.